Hello, I'm James Shear from the Accountancy People, and today I want to talk about Brexit. Now, I don't want to talk about whether you're in or whether you're out or whether you're a shake it all about. What I want to talk about is the actual effect on us and on small businesses of the situation we're in now. Now, I mean, the first thing is in terms of the financial markets, the stock market, believe it or not, is at a record high for the year. Which if you pay attention to the newspapers or the BBC, you wouldn't get that impression. The currency markets, the pound is lower than it was. So against the dollar, it's down about 12 cents. And against the euro, it's down from about 128 to 120, so down about 8 cents in the pound. So it's down a little, something between 5 and maybe 10%. Which will affect you when you go on holiday. So when will Brexit happen? Well, it won't happen for at least 2 years. So between now and then, nothing really will change. I thought the other thing that was just worth looking at was our trading relationship with Europe and the scale of the UK economy in Europe. So when I looked at it, the UK is actually 17% of the whole of the European Union in terms of its economy, and is the second biggest economy in Europe. In terms of the euro area and its export markets, I looked at the 4 biggest export markets for the euro area. The fourth biggest is actually China. And as a sort of surprise entry, Switzerland is the 3rd biggest export market, then the United States, and then the UK. So the UK is actually the largest export market for the euro area. So not only is our biggest export market the euro area, their biggest export market is us. So I would have thought it's very likely that we'll come up with a sensible trade deal. The biggest impact and the biggest immediate impact is on the general economy. So will there be confidence in the economy? Well, over the last week, I would say that confidence is less than it was. But it's really hard to say whether that'll be something that continue for weeks and months, and it'll probably help if our politicians get their act together and decide who's in charge. In terms of interest rates, I've been saying that interest rates will go up in a year's time now for it seems like 3 or 4 years, and it never seems to happen. It seems to be in a year's time, and I think that interest rates will now be slower to go up, and the Bank of England will be very reticent to increase interest rates for some time. Probably the other immediate effect is on inflation. So the exchange rate has devalued. That means that things that we import will become more expensive. We'll see that at the petrol pumps pretty quickly. But then other goods such as cars will go up in price over a period of time. That does of course depend on whether the devaluation of sterling is just a temporary thing, or that reverses out pretty quickly, or it is more permanent. The effect of inflation is probably not all bad because when we look at it, inflation has been really very low and probably lower than the powers that be want. So increasing it to 1 or 2 or 3% is probably something that the Bank of England would quite like. So overall, there probably will be a small increase in inflation, and perhaps you need to look at your own prices in that context. But nothing suggests to me that there's going to be a huge increase that we should worry about. The other effect is on public finances and the possibility that with a slightly weaker economy, the public finances are slightly less good than they would be, which means that perhaps they have to increase taxes a little or reduce public spending. Well, it's too early to say whether that will happen, and time will tell. So in terms of taxation, the main European tax is VAT. So VAT is 99.9% the same across all European countries, and our law is dictated to us by the European Union. So I would foresee that will drift in a different direction over a period of time. I mean, there are certain, particularly unpopular parts of the VAT regime. So people don't like the fact that VAT is raised on domestic fuel, so I'd expect that to come off. And there is the tampon tax, and I'd expect that to be changed pretty rapidly after we leave the EU. In terms of other areas, probably in terms of accountancy, the biggest other area is actually the reporting standards, the way that your accounts are produced, and that's almost all European-wide, so that will drift away as well. In terms of other taxes, they are broadly decided within the UK. There is a European dimension to many of them. For example, the holiday lets, it's not just UK holiday lets, it's also European holiday lets, so things like that might change fairly rapidly. In terms of bigger companies, probably one of the bigger effects will be the transatlantic trade deal, which the EU is currently negotiating with the Americans, and it's certainly not universally popular. And I'd expect that not to apply to the UK, because it will be something that's just to do with the European Union, and we'll have our own deal with the United States. And of course there are little bits and pieces like in the future we might have to get travel insurance and health insurance when we go to Europe, and the roaming fees on your mobile phone will probably be a bit different. So overall, it is a big change, but one that's not going to happen for a couple of years, and we'll see what is negotiated, and we can't really second guess what will be negotiated because it being the EU, it will be done at the last minute. There are some specific changes that we will see in the future, and there are some immediate changes in terms of the exchange rate, in terms of inflation, and maybe some changes to how the economy behaves. But overall, my advice would be to sort of keep calm and keep doing what you're doing. This is James here from the Accountancy People. If you want to discuss any of the things that I've raised, then please give me a call.